Welcome in, everybody. My name is Chris Landry, and you're listening to the Landry Football Podcast, part of the Landry Football Network. Great to be with you. Excited, bunch of things to get to today. Got a minor trade of a former player going back to his former team, I should say. We're going to break down Michigan State, Florida, Georgia a little bit for you. Cardinals, Packers. So we're going to get into that. Go into what's into the Landry Lab. We're going to talk a little bit about the agent's role in coaching searches. A lot to get to today on the Landry Football Podcast for this, Wednesday, as we do the show live Wednesday, the 27th of October, for a Thursday, the 28th of October drop. All brought to you by our great friends at the Daily Tip, presented by BetMGM for the best betting analysis and information. That's where I go. That's where you should go. And we encourage everybody that's joining us. Hey, how do you find us? We always say that. If you found us, well, then you know how to find us. I get it. But for those of you, we like to remind you that if you're listening on the podcast, which you can get by going to LandryFootball.com. And, you can find the podcast there. Click on it. That's an easy way to find it. If you want to sign up for it, it'll show you how to sign up for Landry Football's conference call. You can do that and have it drop to you each and every week. If you want to join us live, and we encourage you to do so by joining us at twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football. Or to make it easy for you, go to LandryFootball.com and click on follow Chris on Twitch, and that'll get you there. And why do we want you to do that? Well, we know you're busy and maybe you can't join us live, but if you can, like Kev Belargo has, and we appreciate his cheering us on a few bits, you might have a question, you might have a thought or comment. You can join us live in the chat room. So it's always so much fun to do that and interact with you. So we've got a few things we're going to get to, and I'm going to jump off the top with some news around the world of football today. In the NFL, Mark Ingram is going back to New Orleans. 31-year-old running back who's been with the Houston Texans is going back there. Obviously, the focus being on the running game there. Obviously, the focus with Alvin Kamara. This is not the same Mark Ingram that left the Saints to sign his free agent contract with the Ravens. Pardon me. He is averaging just at 3.2 yards a carry, just one touchdown. But he gets a offensive line that, while banged up, and Andres Pete is gone for the year, by the way, it looks like, still a better offensive line, and will not necessarily be the change of pace, but will be maybe the early down tandem to go along with Alvin Kamara. So good to have him back, and hopefully that for the Saints, he can help them out and provide them the type of work that they need, and maybe not the full workload, but certainly can give the ability to be able to work him in the inside run that's maybe a little bit more effective than what they've been able to produce in recent years since he's left. So that is the latest news there. Some other news. The Colts' Braden Smith, the right tackle, practiced on a limited basis on Wednesday. Taylor Lewan is in full practice mode, getting ready with the Titans for the Colts this week. Richard Sherman returned to practice today for the Bucs as they face the Saints. Taysom Hill did not practice. Deontay Harris did not practice for the Saints. Miles Jack, with that back problem, is practice on a limited basis Wednesday. And A.J. Terrell of the Falcons got a limited practice work today. The Panthers, Shaq Thompson got some work in today, as well as T.J. Hawkinson getting in some work. So that's the latest news there. In terms of college football, nothing earth-shattering today in terms of news. We've got getting Harrison Bailey, a former top 100 recruit, has left, or he's going to go into the transfer portal from um, Tennessee. He announced on Wednesday. So big kid, 6'4", 224. So look out for him. As you know, that Joe Milton won the starting job, only to be replaced by Henderson Hooker. So if you're not starting, you're departing category. That's exactly what's going on there. Malik Willis is getting some treatment on that left foot. They got UMass this week before they get Ole Miss and Hugh Freeze in the rematch there. So the latest news and notes around the world of college football and the NFL, we got it for you at LandryFootball.com. So check out the latest there. I'm going to get into your questions. We'll try to integrate them into the show. We'll get them largely towards the end of the show. But before I get into a couple of things that are on the agenda for today, I want to take a look at what Kev Belargo has brought with us. Says, can you fill in the gaps with respect to the St. Louis lawsuit against the NFL for illegally relocating the Rams to Los Angeles? From my understanding, Stan Kroenke guaranteed indemnity for the other owners, but apparently now he's trying to wiggle out of that arrangement. If that's the case, then that's an admission by the other owners that they knew the relocation was risky from a legal standpoint. Also, why does Jerry Jones seem to be in the middle of this mess? Loaded question there, and I'm not sure that I can answer it with full clarity because it involves a lot of legal issues that, Kev, I have heard. I think I understand some of it. There's obviously a lawsuit brought because from the St. Louis perspective, because they thought they had a deal. It was clear that Stan Kroenke was definitely wanting to move the team. And it wasn't really about what the St. Louis market could or couldn't do, but they kind of used that as a leaping off point to be able to move. And the league was for it because the league wanted a big time Los Angeles market for a number of reasons. This is probably off the point of what you're asking me, but I think for full context, the LA market's big. They always thought they wanted to have two teams. There was always in the back of their mind, from an ownership standpoint, that it would probably be the Chargers that would be the second team. So you've got two teams. They wanted to build kind of a NFL league office west, if you will. The NFL networks out there, the NFL network studios are right there. So it gives them a lot. They're going to host Super Bowls, and they're hoping down the road to put a whole lot of things there. So they wanted to go into the LA market. Well, I don't know how many people are aware of this. Some may be, but for those of you who are not, the richest owners in the league, the ones with the deepest pockets, well, it was Paul Allen. We lost Paul Allen a few years ago. Paul was by far the richest owner in the league. The second richest owner, by a distant second, was Stan Kroenke. Stan is worth lots of money himself, and he married into one of the Walmart founder, Bud Walton's daughters. So he's got money coming from both sides. And he was one of the few that could pull off some of the stuff that they wanted done that would make him a lot of money, but basically would help the league, but it would require some of the front money and some of the decisions that were made that maybe others couldn't do. I really don't understand the indemnification process of, why he's trying to wiggle out of it or why there is some discrepancy. And why is Jerry Jones in the middle of it is Jerry Jones is the biggest mover and shaker in terms of relocation. He was the one that got Las Vegas pushed for Mark Davis. And he was the one pushing for Stan to go to LA. I mean, Stan wanted to go, but he was the number one guy pushing it. Jerry, for all of his ego weighs in terms of what he wants to get credit for and what he wants to talk about football wise, which he really has no clue about. He is very good. Very, very good. He's the best money maker in the league. He's not the richest guy. Um, but he knows how to make money and he knows how to help his fellow owners make money, which all goes into the bigger piece of the pie. He is just that's why he's in the middle of it, because he's always in the middle of it. So there was always going to be a risk, a legal risk, and I don't know legally what this means for the liability of the entire league. I mean, I guess that we're all a partner to this. I don't know what type of case they have. I mean, I'll listen to legal experts tell me whether it's a good case or not. But, it's pretty clear that there's some things that have come out that maybe have left them unprotected as owners. I don't know what it means on how they're going to fare in court, how they're going to tie it up. But I don't know that I've done a good enough job of giving you the answer of, you know, what's the real issue in terms of the lawsuit. Well, I know what's going on. I just don't know how it's going to play out. And I don't know what the legal recourse and who has a better case and who doesn't. Just from a football person viewpoint looking at it, it looks like there's some things that have come out that clearly might be in violation and make the league owners vulnerable here. So that's about as good as I can do there. But I'm glad you brought that out. Speaking of legal issues, many of the agents, not all of them, many of the agents that represent coaches are lawyers. I talked last week about coaching searches. Um, I want to see, how many people have kind of followed up on that with regards to learning a little bit more about the searches. I want to spend a little time today. Touched on it in the conversation last week, but I want to get into a little bit of what are the role of the agent. I mean, there's an obvious role, and then there's a subliminal role. You know about negotiating deals and working deals. That's pretty obvious. But in coaching searches, be it NFL or college, but certainly in the in college, there is a lot of manipulation behind the scenes. Mainly in that you've got more what I would call professional type negotiators and football people that are involved in negotiating into the NFL. In college, you've got athletic directors that, quite frankly, range from clueless to mediocre. And the agents do these deals all the time. The good ones do the deals several times a year, know how to work the system, and they've got experience. They've got more reps, if we want to call it that way, than the administrator that, as I mentioned in last week's show, might only get one or two chances to hire a coach. Because if you don't get it right, you're not going to be around to hire a third one, maybe not even a second one. But part of what happens in the process is that they certainly float their name out. They certainly kind of don't do it themselves, but they have ways to get information out that might be flattering to their client, that might indicate strongly that a client has a really good chance. And what it does, it certainly can help in the increasing of the deal that they currently have with their current school, or maybe create leverage between two other teams looking to hire a coach. There's a lot of ways that it can go. Now, I've mentioned all the time that coaching searches are very delicate and are very difficult to get to the bottom of it. Look, everybody has a theory about who should be the coach and what I hear and what I read, and people throw things out. a lot of times you throw things out. They're pretty good ideas, make some sense. Sometimes they don't make sense. Somebody people just throw things out. As I've said before, a lot of it is just that, throwing something against the wall, see if it sticks. People have asked me, well, Chris, how do you deal with the information? How do you maybe know a little bit more? Well, in some cases, I may know a lot more. In some cases, I may not. So, to kind of answer a question, it's one question that I have, and I thought I'd go into a little bit more detail. But to how do you know who to trust and what information to believe in coaching searches is uh, what Don sent me. And the answer is you've got to work both sides of it. So first of all, I'm not saying I'm not as interested in who gets the job, but that's not the main purpose of what I do. The main purpose is to help in the evaluation process of, say, schools or teams. So in evaluating candidates, I'll give it's not like, well, what do you think about these three guys? Who do you think we ought to hire? That's not what people ask. Give a more detailed list and evaluation of a lot of candidates over through a lot of different um, larger group than you might think. And then, if asked, certainly will proceed to say what I think and how I think it, um, how I come to the conclusion. And then it's about fit. Well, when you are in the process of discussing with administrators about certain things, oftentimes you're getting information that may hear from other places, or I don't really trust what they say they're going to do, because they normally don't say what they're going to do. And if they do tell me what they're going to do, I would think that they're trying to throw me off because there's no reason to tell me. There have been cases where I've been maybe intimately involved to where I pretty much knew that this is where they were probably going to go. But if I know that, then I really can't repeat that for obvious reasons. But the answer to the question, Don, is you take the information that maybe you get from the side of the person doing the hiring, but then you vet it through the candidates and how do they feel. Um, right now I've got three coaches, and I deal with the agents, but I deal with the coaches themselves, which most people don't deal with the coaches because you can't get to the coaches. Being a coach, being my background, I know these guys. Why will they talk? Well, A, because I know them, I have a background with them, and many of them will ask for my help. Put in a good word for me here, put in a good word for me there. So you have that relationship. And so when you have something that you can help them with, often you need a little bit of information in order which to help them with. Um, I've got three coaches right now that think they're in pretty good shape for the LSU job. Obviously that's based upon whatever feelings they get from their representatives and what those representatives have gotten from the candidate. So you know that the person doing the hiring is talking to candidates, but the person doing the hiring is not going to tell the agent, yeah, we like your guy and we like these two other guys. It's not how it works. You're not going to share that information. You're going to ask and try to gather information about that agent's particular client, but not reveal your other stuff. Now, here's what's interesting. If you have a agent that represents a number of candidates, and let's say you've got 3 or 4 candidates and 2 or 3 of them are represented by one guy, you're having to deal with that guy, and they may know that there's some level of interest in 3 of my clients. How much of an interest? That's based, maybe have an inkling, but you may not know. They're not going to say, hey, look, Mr. Agent, this guy's number 1, this guy's number 2, this guy's number 3. I mean, you don't reveal that. So the whole, well, this is what I think. A lot of it is what you surmise. So the answer is you don't know. You put it together. But to me, even if a school told me that they were going to do something, I'd have to hear it from the other side too to believe it and know that, yeah, look, it makes sense. And then I'm always still interested in waiting and waiting because even when I've heard both sides say, yeah, it's a done deal, I still don't think it's a done deal until it's a done deal. Why am I bringing this out is, though, a lot of what happens is a lot of leaking of information. And I've mentioned this on the Big Ten show today, on Big Ten show yesterday that I did. James Franklin is notorious for getting his name out for a lot of jobs. I mentioned that he tried to convince folks at Penn State back when Jimbo Fisher left Florida State to go to A&M. He tried to convince folks that he was a candidate for the A&M job when that job was lock, stock, and barrel for Jimbo Fisher from day one. With the connection with Scott Woodard and Jimbo Fisher, that was happening. But there's really no way that a Scott Woodard or an athletic director is going to say, no, we're not considering that guy. That's not proper protocol. So, in no way James Franklin is putting that out himself. He's having somebody else doing it on his behalf. So there's plausible deniability, but it floats out there. And what does it do? It creates a little bit of cover. So when people are criticizing him about this play call or that bad game or you lost this or whatever, man, other people like me. I've mentioned this last year. Dan Mullen asked for an interview with the New York Jets to get his name associated with it. That's all he wanted. Well, the Jets liked him. Other people would like him. You think he might leave? You think he's a candidate for the interview? I mean, it's a perception thing. Perception's a reality, but it's not reality, but it kind of is. You know what I mean? That's how the game is played. Well, James Franklin, it came out publicly. Now, I had heard rumors over the summer that he had made an agent change. I wasn't aware of it for certain. It came out recently, I think somebody investigating it, that James Franklin has changed agents from Trace Armstrong to Jimmy Sexton. James Franklin said that it something that was done over the summer. Now, in checking with it over the last 24 hours, there's some discrepancy by the agents involved on when this relationship switched from Armstrong to Franklin. I mean to Sexton. So I don't know. I don't know if there's. I don't know what. Look, I don't know. I don't know what's the truth. But there's not an agreement on when that took place. But here's what we do know: James Franklin, who has Trace Armstrong has put James Franklin's name out there. But James Franklin's looking to up the ante of throwing his name out there. And who does that better than Jimmy Sexton? And thus is the reason why Jimmy Sexton, either recently or back towards the summer, has taken over the negotiations and the representation, I should say, of James Franklin. I don't know if there's a deal to be made for James Franklin. I don't know that USC is as high on him as been reported. I don't know that. I don't know that they're not. I don't know that they are. My sense is, because of my feelings on James Franklin, that it's probably not as high as people might think. I don't think, and I would be surprised if James Franklin was high on LSU's list. But the perception that he is could help him at least get a little cover for the criticism that he has gotten at Penn State and will get as the season continues to go the direction that it's going. And so when you hear things dropped like that, this is where you got to be careful what you read and don't trust what you hear and read, because it is not that a lot of times people, quote unquote, take a just general talk as information and they like to play the big shot role. Well, I know this and I know somebody up here and this and that, and this is what I hear. And it's often BS. Two, sometimes a legitimate reporter will legitimately get information from somebody at a school or a representative that they're being used and don't know they're being used. It helps the client if the name of the client is brought up as a candidate for a job. So very often, somebody will be used to be an intermediary to put that out there, somebody that the person trusts. And it's not that they're making it up as a reporter, is that they're getting information that's fed to them falsely for the purposes of getting the client a little bit more pub, a little bit more cover, if you will, wherever they are. Then for the school, they very often like to put information that's out there to do one of two things: create a smoke screen, or to create the smoke screen for who they're really going after and throw people off the scent of the true candidate, or to float an idea of how that guy may play out. Very often, you'll see maybe a controversial coach, for whatever reason, be floated out there. Why do you think that is? See if there's an uproar, see if there's an acceptance. It could affect how serious you might consider a person. So keep that in mind when everybody wants to know, you don't know. I've said this for a long, long time, and I've noticed this has been copied quite a bit. Imitation's the greatest form of flattery, but I've said this for a long, long time. Those who know don't talk, those who talk don't know. I say that around NFL draft time. I say that around coaching search time. I say that around other times, but no more 2 times a year is that applicable than those two. I tell you what's essential, whether it's coaching searches, whether it's games, if you are interested in sports betting, you know just how quickly the lines can change. And when you've got a lot riding on those odds, it pays to stay ahead of the curve. So, before placing your bets, listen to the daily tip presented by BetMGM for the best betting analysis and information. Folks, I've listened to them. They are fun, they're informative, they're extremely helpful, and I wouldn't go to bed without them. A lot can change between last night's games and today's odds. The daily tip gives you an early look at all the angles. Hosts Michael Jenkins and Chelsea Messinger break down the big takeaways and make sure you know everything you need to bet smarter. With featured guests like bookmakers, Odyssey insiders, and BetMGM experts, you've always got a fresh take on the action. Your friends are going to be wondering what you know that they don't. Not that you have to tell them where you heard it, of course. As much fun as it is to bet on the game, it's even more fun when you've got the inside scoop. Ready for an edge? Tune in to the Daily Tip presented by BetMGM. Listen weekdays 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Odyssey, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app. Look, I'm a longtime veteran NFL coach, college coach, scout. I listen to them. I enjoy them. I couldn't recommend them higher. Check them out. Listen weekdays, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern on Odyssey, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. The Daily Tip, presented by BetMGM. So we've got some big matchups this weekend, and none bigger than Michigan State. Now, I shall tell you that I fully believe that while both of these teams are good, and I think it's an exciting game, and I think it's going to be big for the winner, I don't see either one of these teams as a playoff team, meaning I don't think they're good enough to run the table and beat Ohio State or get into the playoffs. And if they get there, they're capable of beating anybody in the playoffs. That's how I see them. I see them as good, not great. But I want to talk about a couple of things. Um, I'll talk about Aiden Hutchinson, who's an outstanding prospect. And I'm going to answer a question right here from one of our chat room. Rich Coach says, as of now, Chris, what are scouts currently doing around this time? Well, what they've been doing, Rich, all year long. College scouts are out on the road scouting colleges. They'll do that really through the end of the games. So basically, end of November, early December. They will go out into the schools and will make school visits and study players like Aiden Hutchinson, who I'm getting ready to talk about. They go into the school during the week. They look at all the film. They meet with the trainers, the strength coaches, all the coaches, go to practice. And if they can, they may catch a game if it's near the end of the week. But that's what they do. The pro personnel scouts are studying tape of other NFL players. But what they're doing is what they do since they've done hitting the road in late August. Aiden Hutchinson is having as good a year as a player, regardless of position, as anybody in college football. He's a senior defensive end. He has been a terror. He has been tough to block. He's got a relentless motor. He stands out to you, man. He is off the snap, finishes, love his hand placement, love his ability to run his feet, is rushing the passer. Such a great close. Good feel for making himself skinny through the hole and escaping blocks. His go-to moves. He's got an inside scissor move, which is really a double hand swipe move, lethally effective. Particularly when you're a two-hand punch guy, he just keeps throwing that. This is what the Bosas do, and he does it just as well. Um, I'm going to tell you, he is just like those guys. He is that good. He can win with speed and power, and he can convert speed to power. He plays on both sides of the field. He stands up on most snaps a little bit more than the Bosas did. He has enough power to keep you honest when you set lightly, and he works that speed to power move with that relentless move. He's just outstanding. He has a great feel for the game. He knows when to attack the edge, when to counter inside, when to attack the double team. He's been a menace all year long. He has added his value by coming back this year. A great lesson on why you want to come back. Most people in the league see him going in the top 10. He can get to the quarterback. He's very twitchy. He can play up. He could play some down and nickel, size and length. But, boy, he can be disruptive in the run game too. He's outstanding. He's absolutely outstanding. Love this guy. Think he's a great, great talent. Let's get into the Michigan State game. I think it's an intriguing game, no doubt. As I take a look, and I hope that I have okay, we lost our feed a little bit, and I apologize for that. As we get into Michigan State game, now that we've broken down Aiden Hutchinson, I think it shapes up to be a really close matchup, maybe a low scoring matchup of here, two defensive teams that are playing well. They're very physical. If you're going to look at the running game of Michigan, they're really improving, no doubt. Um, the run defense of Michigan State has been pretty good thus far. Um, I think they've played very well. The skill guys have done a nice job. Um, the Spartans at this point haven't beaten a team with a winning record. So I think that there's much to be proven there. The Michigan offensive line is playing some of the best in the country right now up front, and this helps them. So when they don't turn the football over, they're really, really good. And this is going to be a good matchup at the line of scrimmage, and I think Michigan can hold up very well. For Michigan State, um, to me, the offensive front held its own against Wisconsin, but against a Michigan State defensive line, this is a unit that's very good, that's creating um, a lot of pressures, and it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge in the passing game. So the question is, I think this is going to be a balanced attack from Michigan State that can throw it, that can run it very well. I think Michigan is a little bit better overall in terms of the defensive unit having more substance to it. I think the offensive line's a little bit better. But I think this is another game which, is going to tell us a little bit about the kind of the moxie of the teams involved and really how potentially we see these teams play out is really going to come down to who can make plays in the pass game. I do think that Michigan State's got an edge at running back, and I think Corum is very good at Michigan, but Michigan State's very, very good. I'm breaking this game as a special game breakdown on LandryFootball.com, so I'm going to have a pick for you, and I have a complete detailed breakdown. We break down all the games for you, all the college games by conference, but we're going to have a special breakdown of Michigan State. I'm also going to take a look at inside the film room of what can Florida do against Georgia's defense. And that's going to be a special breakdown. So let's get into that a little bit. We know about this Georgia defense and how good it's been. They've got elite players. They're coached well. They give you a lot of different looks. They stem their front, meaning they move pre-snap to get you misaligned and kind of paralyze you a little bit assignment-wise with your blocking. And this is one of the best teams we've seen in some time defensively. So what gives here? What does Mullen do? And offensive whiz, and they've lost 6 of their last 8 games against Power 5 competition. They got embarrassed against an LSU team that's not very good. Can we see Dan Mullen pull a rabbit out of the hat? And we see him do something that's maybe a little bit different than what we've seen before. Let's take a look at this Georgia defense. It's an utterly dominant front four. They're built in the trenches with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Devontae Wyatt and Trayvon Walker and Nolan Smith. They're the main pieces in the front. They get most of the national exposure. They're the game-changing guys in the defense. Carter is an absolute menace with his penetration and his pass rush. These guys win with one-on-one blocks. They dominate, and they fight through double teams. When they rotate, I do see a drop-off. They love to substitute and play situational defense, and they do a great job of maximizing their players' talents while rotating and keeping them fresh. They love to run games on first down. So the first is the penetrator. So when you run like a TE, that's a tackle goes first and the end goes second. They run that to the boundary. So the tackle penetrates, they loop, and then the end tackle to the field. They do a really good job with that. So in addition to being good, they time up their stunts and twists very well. They have what looks like to be a lot of chaotic confusion, but they really do a good job of playing what you would call a controlled aggression. 3rd and long, they mix up their fronts. Sometimes they'll go in a 3-man front, and then they'll cast a wide net to let the offense catch the ball underneath. They swarm to the ball. They love to show two rushers to one side, then drop them, and then pressure from the other side. They're great at simulating pressure to make you think they're bringing more than they are and then force you one direction while coming from the other. In an odd front, with Dean sugared up in the A gap to force, like Kentucky, to honor him and the threat to rush, he'll drop to the field side. And then Walker pressures the quarterback. They did that quite a bit against Kentucky and caused a lot of problems. Against Auburn, they forced a lot of match protection, one-on-one versus a bear look, which both centers and both the guards and the center covered. With the weak side linebacker walked up over the center. Georgia adds on and brings the Mike backer up the middle, and then the safety from the boundary. Nick's really struggled with that. The back releases, and he's in trouble. Then they'll play games, which means that you'll see them move laterally at the same time to try to confuse the blocking schemes and try to get the offensive lineman to jump offensive line pre-snap. So they will, like in an over front versus, say, 12 personnel, Jordan Davis will stun across the center's face, and they'll run a cross-dog blitz in the B gap behind him. And that creates a lot of confusion. Just that slight hesitation is enough. So they add to their ability to win singularly by running a lot of different things. They run a lot of zone on the back end, more so than in years past. Their secondary is the biggest link, but because they play zone, they handle it very well. So what is Florida's identity? Well, the first 3 weeks of the season, they were a very good running team. They played Alabama in week 3, and for 3 quarters went toe-to-toe with them. They moved the football with relative ease. The last few weeks, they've looked completely different offense. You see a few shot plays, which plays into Georgia's favor. Mullen is creative getting guys open, but you have to stretch the field vertically at some point. Dan Mullen seems to have a soft spot for Emory Jones, but it looks like Anthony Richardson, in terms of his ability to make more plays. Richardson seemed to spark the offense, and they responded when he's in the game. He gives them the best chance to win. And, I think what the reason why Mullen is playing Emory is that he doesn't make as many mistakes as Richardson. But they're going to need more chunk plays and big plays in a game like this to stretch the field. Because if they can't stretch the field, they can't create the run creases. So I thought that the threat of the run was enough to get Alabama misaligned to be able to run the football on them. They're going to have to execute a near-perfect game against Georgia, and Georgia's going to have to make some mistakes. They're going to have to dial up a great game plan. They're going to have to be very effective exploiting the front seven. They've got, 2 capable quarterbacks, so let's have it. Let's go. You see them line up in some bunch sets and, run a lot of power pass run action up front. Then running back will clear out the Mike backer. I expect to see some of that. And then they'll run the split zone, but then run the trap to the field side as they gash the defensive tackle up the middle. Lots of teams have attacked Georgia laterally this year, but the great way to attack great defenses is to run downhill on them, which is easier said than done. And the way that Georgia penetrates, I'd expect to see a version of a trap, because the only way you're going to be able to block them is you're going to have to invite them upfield and trap them, because you're not going to win winning one-on-one matchups against this crew. The best way to score on Georgia is to get to the back end of their defense, but you have to have the quarterback, you have to have the offensive line and the skill players to test them. Nobody's come close. Kentucky had some mild success throwing through the tight end, attacking them laterally with some deception. Auburn had a little success with Bo Mix extending some plays, but nothing sustained. Florida has not shown all the pieces besides 3 great quarters against Alabama running the football and a few plays in the passing game. Florida needs to sustain drives. And in order to do that, they got to mix up tempo. They got to keep Georgia from substituting. That would help a lot. If you create tempo If you play with a lot of up tempo, you can get them misaligned if you get them tired. So you can motion a lot to mix up the formation, go quick game, go with the quarterback run, go with the screen game, go with the RPOs. Um, they're going to need to move the football because multiple 3-and-outs, this game's going to be over quickly. It's going to be a blowout. So a lot of motions, 21 personnel. Kentucky had some success with 13 personnel. I think staying on schedule is important. Third and long is going to kill you. So I expect Jones to run a lot of options to the field. I think you're going to see Anthony Richardson run some RPOs. And can the quarterbacks have a great game individually, collectively in the run game? They've got to be able to do that. For the offensive line, you're going to need to give the quarterback time to throw the football. If you don't, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have big time trouble. If you can't stay on schedule, it's going to be trouble. Having watched both of these teams, I think Florida's in for a long day. But I think a good game plan, getting some early success and forcing Georgia to play from behind, something they've not been able to do, is the formula. It's the best formula. Quite frankly, it's the only formula, I think, where they're going to have any level of success. So we'll see how that plays out. I want to address a little bit, if I could, the game of the week in the NFL, and it's a Thursday night game, and it's the one-loss Packers, the 7-0 Cardinals, 6-1 Packers. And it's going to be real interesting. Both of them control their own destiny right now in the race for home field advantage. It's early, but it's never too early to be thinking about it. I expect a lot of offensive fireworks in this game. So we'll see where this goes in terms of the injuries. Devontae Adams got COVID. That's a big factor for the Dean Lowry, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Preston Smith, Dennis Kelly, Kevin King, Josh Myers, and David Bakhtiari. We've got the updates in the film room breakdown on Landry Football. For the Cardinals, it's Lawrence with a calf, Chandler Jones, illness, Darnell Daniels with a hamstring, Kylie Fitz on IR, J.J. White with a shoulder that he's dealing with. Again, we'll give you the updates there. The Packers are an intriguing team. They had the loss against the Saints, and it was kind of, well, this team is slowly out of it. They're not going to be out of it. They're going to stay in contention. I still question if they're good enough to make a deep run like all the way in the playoffs, but you can't count them out. The offense has been productive. They're not quite gaining yards like they did last year, but they're currently ranked yards in 24th in yards per game. But that was a lot to do with week one. They've gotten better. The defense has been fairly productive. That's one thing we need to see if they can hold on. The unit's taking down opposing quarterbacks and forcing turnovers. They've had 18 sacks, 7 interceptions. So that's going to be the key here for success. Can they create some turnovers? I mean, you can give either one of these quarterbacks an extra possession, you got a better chance to win it. The Cardinals started off slow last week, came alive against the Texans, maybe lulled to sleep. Kyler Murray's just outstanding. He's got such tremendous feet. It's a great receiving core that's very underrated. They've added Zach Ertz to it at tight end. Much like the Packers, everyone is focusing on the offense. But the Cardinals' defense has had a really good year. They've only allowed 316 yards a game. They've been productive against the pass. Opposing quarterbacks are barely hitting 200 yards a game. And I'm a little concerned about their run defense. The Vikings ran the football on them pretty well. So we're going to see how this plays out. How does the quarterback – let's watch the quarterbacks. This is the matchup that everybody wants to see. So you can check my good friends at BetMGM, and we talked about early, check the odds. Let's see. This is going to be the difference factor in terms of how deep these teams can go. So it's going to be a factor in this game. Big playability, play extension, off-platform throws, outstanding. Now, Murray makes more mistakes. He's got 5 picks, gave up a safety last week. Aaron Rodgers doesn't usually make that. So a little bit of an edge there. I am a little concerned about the Packers' health right now with the COVID issues with Devontae Adams, defense coordinator Joe Barry. That means Jared Gray's, my buddy Jared Gray's going to be calling plays. So I think there's a distinct disadvantage. So big losses there. There's no question. Can Randall Cobb step up? Can somebody else step up? Can Robert Tonyan step up and make plays for him? Who can run the football the most effectively? Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, better backs, but and I think you can run against both run defenses, but the Cardinals have done a pretty good job. The Cardinals with Edmonds and James Conner, um, you know, it doesn't get a lot of focus, but you've got to throw in the fact that the quarterback can run and could be a difference maker here. So it's going to be a fun game. We're going to get into more of it at Landry Football. I think it's going to be one in which we're going to have to watch and see. I think we'll see a lot of points, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun as we break it down for you. So check it out over at LandryFootball.com. A reminder to take advantage of the football season sale over at LandryFootball.com is where you can get all the breakdowns of all the college games, all the NFL games. So we encourage you to join us there. We encourage you to sign up. Go to LandryFootball.com, listen to this podcast, sign up for Landry Football Conference Call where you can get this podcast every week. And again, check out our great folks at the Daily Tip presented by BetMGM weekdays, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Odyssey, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app, and let them know that we sent you over there, over at LandryFootball.com, Chris Landry. Hey, thanks a bunch for joining us. We'll be back next week for another edition breaking down all the latest in the world of football, college football, the NFL. Again, we got it all covered for you at LandryFootball.com. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition. I've got SEC football and beyond again. We'll get into all the game breakdowns for the weekend in college football. This week, what's on in the Landry Lab? Michigan State, Michigan, Monitor 1, Texas, Baylor, Monitor 2. This is in the first window. Miami, Pitt 3, Cincinnati, Tulane 4, Iowa, Wisconsin 5, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech 6. Second window, Florida, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, Duke, Wake, Colorado, Oregon, Minnesota, Northwestern, TCU, Kansas State. In the early evening window, it's Penn State, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Auburn, Kentucky, Mississippi State, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Louisville, NC State, and Arizona, USC. Boise, Colorado State, Oregon State, Cal. Then late night, I'm very interested in Fresno State, San Diego State, UCLA, Utah, Virginia, BYU, and Washington, Stanford. So that's how I'll be looking at it over in the NFL. As I mentioned, the key Thursday night game, the early window, I'll be looking at Tennessee, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati, New York, Carolina, Atlanta, Miami, Buffalo. Then I'll have San Francisco, Chicago, Philly, Detroit, and the Rams, Houston. In the second window, only 4 games. Tampa, New Orleans, New England, Chargers, Jacksonville, Seattle, and Washington, Denver. Obviously, your Sunday night game, Dallas, Minnesota, and Monday night game, Kansas City, trying to get back on track against the Giants with the Raiders and the Ravens off this week on a bye week. Hey, that's a look at the action this weekend. We're going to get it all broken down for you inside the film room at LandryFootball.com and right here on all the family of podcasts on the Landry Football Network. Appreciate you joining us. Spread the word. Talk to you next time, everybody.